What can we expect to see tomorrow?
So tomorrow's going to be largely procedural with one caveat. So they're going to spend 4 hours, up to 4 hours tomorrow, debating whether or not this is actually constitutional. Former President Trump's lawyers are suggesting and have argued that it isn't, and many of President Trump's supporters in the Senate have also called this unconstitutional. And they're going to debate it, and then they're going to have a vote. And that vote will decide the constitutionality of it all. And then once that happens, you then prepare for Wednesday, which is when 16 hours worth of debate and trial happens, and both sides begin to lay out their case.
So are you saying if it falls tomorrow, if it is ruled to be non-constitutional, there will be no further impeachment trial? It will end tomorrow?
Theoretically, yes, but there's actually no chance of that happening because we already know that there are 51 Democratic votes already in place, and we saw that last week, to vote to proceed on this. The Republicans tried to hold it up on constitutional grounds, and 5 Republicans joined with those Democrats. So it is going to be ruled constitutional, and then at that point, we can proceed to a trial.
I see. The argument for it being constitutional is that he is no longer president, and you cannot impeach a president who is no longer in power. But they all agreed to hold this trial after the inauguration. So how does that work?
Well, that tells you some of the issues regarding the defense for former President Trump. Consider this. So they're not arguing that the president didn't do what everybody said he sees that he has done. The defense of President Trump on this is all on procedural grounds. This isn't constitutional. He's out of office. We can't do it. But the Constitution is silent on whether or not a president can be tried after leaving office. And there have been numerous examples in American history in which cabinet secretaries and other high-ranking officials have been impeached and convicted after they left office. There is no reasonable, serious argument about whether or not this is constitutional. It's political at this point. The vast majority of constitutional scholars will tell you this is a legitimate proceeding.
And so what kind of evidence will be presented, Professor?
Well, again, it's not going to be about whether or not the president said what he said or has conducted himself the way that he has. It's clear and incontrovertible. The question is whether or not there are enough Republicans in the Senate who are prepared to be open and honest about the evidence that we all have seen with our own eyes and heard with our own ears. So they're going to be nibbling at the edges to try to, the defense is going to be nibbling at the edges to try to give enough Republicans something to hang on to justify a vote to acquit, even though we all know that the evidence is there. And one of the big differences between this time and the previous impeachment is, you know, there's evidence. We know it. We see it. And yet they voted against it. They voted to acquit last time. And the big difference this time will be if they feel a little less burdened to stick with the president who's no longer in office.
Yeah, I have less than 30 seconds, Professor. Early indications say there will not be enough Republican votes at all. So what happens after that?
Well, at that point, we then get into a very political sort of discussion here because those members who vote to acquit, given all that we've seen, are going to have to be held accountable for their words and their votes. And at that point, I think you're going to see a lot of really difficult conversations being had, trying to explain why it is they did what they did.